Hi, welcome to the Jiu Jitsu Oracle's under 88 kilogram division tier list for the ADCC, the latest in our series of tier lists, which so far has looked at the under 66 kilogram division in the ADCC and the under 80 kilogram division in CJI. So I'm Ross, that's Callum, and first off, before we get going, let's quickly explain what the tier list is, Callum.
Yeah, so we've given distinct categories for each tier, tries to make it a bit less subjective, so we've got very specific criteria for each tier. So if you're in S tier, you're a clear favourite to win the division, so could be one guy, could be more than one guy, but if you're in this tier, you're definitely one of the favourites to win the division. In A tier, this means you've got a good chance to win or go very far, so not quite considered a favourite to win the division, but definitely someone that can win and definitely someone that we would think would go pretty far into the division. B tier, we've got this as the dark horse division, so in this division, people could surprise people with performances, go very well, or if it's their day and they perform well, these guys could go on to win the whole competition. C tier, we've got this as the disruptors tier. So these guys could disrupt a little bit, they could win a match or two, possibly take out some big names, but we don't think they've done or proven enough in their career as of yet to win the whole thing. And then D tier, we've got this as just unproven tier. So this tier, because of what they've done in their career so far, they've not shown enough that they can be competitive with some of the top guys in the division, especially given they'll be quite a low seed and likely to have a high seed. This isn't a bad place to be going into ADCC though, because a lot of guys have made their name at ADCC, like Craig Jones back in 2017 probably would have been in D tier, and we know the performance he had. So being in this tier isn't like an end-all be-all, good place to be and make a big name for yourself.
Okay, the first name we're going to discuss in this tier list is Jacob Rodriguez. But just a quick bit of housekeeping before we get on to talking about J-Rod. Hopefully, if all goes well, you can see a graphic on the video, and as we go through the video, we're going to try and update the graphics. So if you like seeing graphics, if you're watching us on YouTube, then fingers crossed they appear during the video, but please bear with us as we get used to this podcasting, video casting malarkey that we've decided to embark on. Second off, if you're on YouTube, please leave a comment. There's been loads of comments coming in about the tier list. Let us know if you agree or disagree or want to throw anything else into the mix. But, as promised, first name, J-Rod. Where do you think we should place him?
So I think C tier for him. He obviously had a very impressive trials performance. The first trials that he did to get into last ADCC Worlds, I think it was 7 or 8 matches, all by submission. Since then, some impressive things he's done. I think his most impressive performance was his last one against Tynan. He looked really good in that match. He managed to pass Tynan's guard, control him in the first part of the match, despite losing in the later half of the match. And I would think putting him in C tier would be appropriate. I think looking at some of the guys he's had in this division, he's had Jacob Couch twice. Neither of those matches were particularly competitive. He's lost at trials to William Tack, a guy that's not in this division but would have been in this division otherwise. So I could definitely see him be a disruptor, his style, being good at wrestling, having a lot of fight and cardio in him. I could definitely see him being a really hard match and potentially taking out a name or two, but I just don't think he's got the experience or proven enough to go really far and win this competition.
I think when you would talk about elite level performance, elite level competition, when you see J-Rod's record on Who's Number One, where he is playing against guys who are going to be capable of doing well in events like ADCC or CJI, you know, he's not got the best of records. So I just think that, like, at this level we're talking about, it's going to be difficult for him to go all the way.
Yeah.
So classic disruptor, but I don't think a dark horse to win it all. Okay. Pedro Mourinho.
Yeah, so it's interesting because the caliber of grappler Pedro is, he's not really been able to showcase that yet in ADCC. I think he's done 2 ADCC World Championships so far. one that he got into when he was a coloured belt, and then one last time around where he beat J-Rod in a pretty close match, and then he lost his match after that, and then lost the first round in the absolute to tie. So honestly, if he'd had a better record in previous ADCCs, I'd probably be looking towards S tier. Some of the guys he's faced in this division, like he beat Giancarlo, he's beat a lot of guys in this weight class and looked really good a lot of the time outside ADCC, but it's just given his past ADCC, I don't quite feel like I can put him in S tier, but really good wrestling, really good threats with the guillotine, hard to score on, hard to do anything to, hard to score on in general, but also with that threat of the guillotine. So I'd be looking towards A tier for Pedro.
You did speak about the importance of having a special move, where when we were talking about Andrew Tackett in the previous tier list. So Pedro's definitely got that with it's looked at as the guillotine, but I just think it's like a head wrap. Because like any time your head's in a grabbable or your neck's in a grabbable place, he's going to latch onto that, and he's got the ability to finish that attack. So yeah, very, very dangerous from that point of view, but just tough to score on.
Beating some big names, Giancarlo, Craig Jones are two guys he's beaten in the last couple of years, and doesn't really get much bigger than that around this weight class. So yeah, I think A tier is pretty fair for him. Could definitely see him winning this division, and I do expect him to go very far, even if he doesn't win. Yeah,
and that's what we're saying, like A tier, it's like we're looking at guys who can maybe get to like the semis or the final. You know, I think he's definitely in the mix for that. Okay, Chris Wojcik.
Okay, so for me, Chris, at this level, even though he is a bit of a veteran in the game now, I would have to say at this level, for the comparison of guys in this division, I would have to say he's unproven and in D tier. His record, I don't know if is he beating anyone in this division? Definitely not any of the top guys. I don't think he's won trials before. He's been invited to this ADCC. Whether that would have happened or not because of the whole CGI thing and people dropping out, we don't really know. But yeah, he's not won trials. He's not beaten anyone in this division that I'm aware of. Definitely not any of the top guys. So I have to say unproven for him. Obviously, he could come in and shock some people, win some matches. Hopefully that does happen for him, but I think as of yet, he's quite unproven at this level.
Yeah, I think like maybe his best wins come against the likes of Cody Steele and Kieran Kachuk, from what I could see, and they are good names to have on your resume. But so when we're talking about like what's essentially a world championship, then they're not at the elite end of world championship contenders, shall we say. So try to phrase that in a way that's like not taken away from those guys, because they're really, really good, but like we're talking about people who can go and win a world title here. So Chris, really well rounded, so I don't think he's going to get taken anywhere that he's going to get found out necessarily, but I think like if he was to be able to win a match, particularly because he's going to face, you would think he's going to face like a top seed.
Yeah, someone that's not won trials and that's had a fairly recent invite, he's probably pretty likely to get a top 3 or 4 seed.
Yeah, but all that said, if you want to see some good content, if you want to read some good content, give Chris a follow on Twitter /X, whatever you call it these days, and various other platforms. He's got some really interesting, engaging material out there.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, Ryan Aitken.
So Ryan is another guy that has not won trials. He's got an invite recently. So that would potentially make you start to think D tier. However, he has beaten some really big names recently, and I think his style bumps him up a little bit. So he's got a decision win over Jacob Couch, who's definitely a heavy hitter for this division. He's also got a recent win over Big Dan, and he's got a submission win over Portfolio as well, who's also in this division. So he's given some of the guys that he's beaten recently, even though he's not won trials, and given his game, really solid, really physical, and as well very, very dangerous on the leg. So I would be thinking he fits quite well into the disruptors tier because of that. I think if he gets a hold of some people in this division's legs, he can definitely finish them.
Instinctively, I went disruptor when I saw Ryan Aitken's name. Then I was like, oh, I'm not sure, like, because based on how we're trying to categorize everything and accolades score really high, I'm not sure. But then I saw like some of the big wins that he'd had recently, and I thought, no, if he's got the capability to beat the guys who he has beaten, then he's got the capability to beat a lot of people in this division. Whether he can beat like 4 guys in a row and go all the way, I think it's like
a different thing. Yeah,
a different thing. But yeah, capable to definitely like win a match or two and cause some surprises for some people. All right. You mentioned him already. Big name in the division, Jacob Couch. What do you think about his chances here?
Yeah, so for him, he's obviously very, very strong in his game. Really good close guard, really good leg locks. Just general like submissions from the bottom. Seems like he's got very good like static strength and control in a lot of these positions. So when he gets to his positions like close guard, like leg locks, choi bars, he's very strong from there and has a lot of control and can definitely finish guys, especially if things are like a little bit drier earlier in the matches. That's typically when we see him submit guys, I think, a little bit earlier on into the matches. With guys in this division, obviously we mentioned he's beaten J-Rod twice. He's lost to Isaak. Isaak won that match pretty dominantly. He submitted Elder Cruz quite recently as well. Got some other wins over guys in this division. I think obviously lost to Ryan as well. So losing to Ryan, we've put Ryan in C. You might be thinking C towards Jacob, but I just think Jacob's won trials in a really impressive fashion and put together a better resume and just comes across as like a lot more dangerous. I think those two probably cancelled each other out with the leg locks because they're both really good at it. But I think I can envision Couch imposing his game a lot more than Ryan. I think he's proven his game a lot more against like higher level guys as of late. So I would be thinking dark horse for him. Honestly, on his day, if he gets to his positions or things are quite dry in the match, I could envision him going all the way and winning. So I would think B tier for him, dark horse.
That's what I always do when I consider it. I start ruminating and then I think, no, let's go back to the name of the category. Is Jacob Couch a disruptor? He can cause disruption, but then is he a dark horse to win it all? Like, absolutely. I think he's a dark horse to win it all. So, as you've said, he has a game where he can pretty much beat anyone in this division, submit anyone if like the stars all align for him. So I think he's a big threat. He is also beatable. Like when you see his record, you look through his record, you look at who he's beaten, there's plenty of top names on it. But then there's like, when you look at his losses, there's plenty of like...
lost to Ryan. I think Giancarlo submitted him at trials. Isaak beat him very dominantly in their match as well. And then I'm sure there's a few others dotted in here and there that he's lost to in the division or had matches with. So definitely beatable, but at the same time, definitely capable of beating guys in the division.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are slotting Jacob Couch in at B tier. Okay, Lucas Kennard.
Yeah, so don't know the most about this guy, but from what I'm aware of, obviously he won his trials, the Asian and Oceanic trials, but I think for the level of guys in this division, and especially coming from the Asian trials, getting a top seed first round, I think he is somewhat unproven in this division. Again, he's coming up. He's in the same position as Craig Jones, coming from that part of the world in this division as well. So could definitely shock some people, but I think unproven so far.
Yeah, like kind of like in the same position as Craig Jones in that Lucas is very dangerous off his back, he enters legs, and then goes into the arms as well. So there is some similarities there, but like we'll find out in this tournament how far the similarities go because Craig's gone on to like great things. Will Lucas? We don't know. That's the joy of sport. I like because of his style, like you could say he's like got disruptor potential, but I just don't think he's proven enough at the level we're playing at. So we're looking at, can you be a disruptor against the guys who like you're going to be playing against, like the top seeds here? I haven't seen enough of them, but if he picks up a submission win like in the first round, like it would not absolutely shock me. But I just think we're going to put him in D tier just now, just because he's unproven at this level. Now, talking about someone else who's a big submission threat, let's have a look at Taylor Pierman.
Yeah. So Taylor won his trials very dominantly. I think it was 6 matches, 6 submissions. beat Adam Brzezinski in his semi-final, so I think that is his biggest name on his resume.
I would say it's the biggest name on his resume that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so that is a big win. Difficult because I don't think, outside of that, I don't know if he's beaten any of these guys in this division, so you'd maybe look towards unproven, but I think beating a guy like Adam who has won trials and has qualified for ADCC and how dominantly he won in the type of game, I kind of slot him into a similar category as Ryan Aitken. I would be thinking he fits the C tier destructor category quite well. I think he's absolutely world class at he's world class at everything, but like there's two areas like guard passing and leg locks. He's just like one of the best in the world at, and I think he can definitely beat guys if he gets into those games.
So first off, on the guard passing, I think a lot of people might be sleeping on that a little bit, but you're a big fan of his guard passing.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, so the last trials, he won all his matches by leg lock, and then, so that's kind of what everyone knows him as. That's when he broke onto the scene outside the UK. He was already known in the UK prior to that, but the trials before that, he was beating everyone with his guard passes, so like he passed everyone's guard until the match that he lost quite late into the tournament, kind of lost it in a silly way in a strategic error, but he'd beaten that guy previously. So his guard passing is amazing. He taught guard passing here when he came to a seminar here, and it's probably the worst top pressure I've ever felt from someone. So I think if he gets an opportunity, I don't know how strong his wrestling is. I don't think that's an area he's really worked, and I don't think he's really doubled down on that. I think he's doubled down on his strengths for this ADCC from what I'm aware. So I don't see him wrestling guys to get the top position, but if guys pull on him, I think he'll be quite happy with that situation, and I think he'll be a massive threat to stay on top, control, and pass from there. And then if he is on his back, he's like super dangerous in the legs, and also very capable of sweeping and getting on top from there.
Can he get to the bottom position creatively, not to have a penalty point awarded against him?
Yeah.
It's going to be a big question.
Yeah, definitely.
If he enters the legs, let's talk about the 88 kilogram division and the potential for success by doing that.
Yeah, so I think the 88 kilo division, especially compared to 77, there is still a bit of a gap for people to exploit the leg locks. Obviously, every division, people can get leg locks. It's not like it doesn't work in 66 or 77. It's just we see guys like running through people with leg locks a lot more in the A8 division compared to some other divisions like 77. So I think this is a good division for Taylor to utilise his game and do very well. Looking at some other guys that are really good at leg locks in some of the other divisions as well, it's a bit more difficult for them. So I think this is a good division for Taylor to make use of his strengths and beat some people.
Agreed. Let's stay in Europe. Santeri Lilius. What do you make of his chances here?
Yeah, so he is a bit different to Taylor. I view Taylor as being like very dangerous. He's more like very solid and will shut your game down. Good wrestling, good passing, and just ability to kind of stay on top and not rush the pass, just kind of shut your game down first. Make sure you're not getting anything off and then grinding out the pass or just maintaining his top position to win from there. Some names in his resume. Does he have much names in this division on his resume?
Santeri. Let me find him in my book. So, he has a win, I believe, over Chris Wojcik, and I believe he also has a previous win over Adam Brzezinski, and a name that we know in the UK, obviously not as well known for being a no-gi grappler, but someone who started to make some waves in the black belt division is Faris from the Roger Gracie HQ. So he has wins over like that level of competitor. In the losses, I've got him down as having lost to Hulk, having lost to Couch, I believe. They might have in a match.
Yeah, I've seen on his resume here, he's beating Hunter Coleman as well by submission. That's a good win. Bradley Hill is a good win. Yeah, going quite far back there. It's difficult between D and C tier, because like we say, he's like a different. I think he's similar level to Taylor from what we've seen so far. They're just like different versions, and I think his ability to shut people down is also very valid. Compared to someone's ability just to go out there and leg lock someone, his ability just to like control the match and get the win regardless.
So there's two things there, right? So one, in Europe, we see a lot of like the European trials, right, being based in the UK. And we've got these two extremes, like we've seen like guys like Taylor or Owen O'Flanagan previously, like win with a lot of submissions, a lot of leg attacks. But then like Santeri has had huge success playing like totally differently, very wrestle heavy games, right? And had a lot of success doing so. So, like in Europe, like if we're saying Taylor's kind of at that like sea level, like you could start saying, well, Santeri is kind of on that level as well, just like in a different way, plays it differently, right? And then two, it's a good point you raised there. I just want to re-emphasize it or maybe amplify it. Is there's ways to be a disruptor, and I think we always look at like guys who have huge submission potential as like they're the disruptors, but actually like what we might see here are a couple of guys who are like just disruptors because they're incredibly hard to beat. So it's like, well, how do you win against them? And then that means that they can win some like grindy matches and get...
Yeah, especially given the rule set of ADCC, they don't even need to necessarily get a score on the board with their passing. Like they can just shut down a guard player. Let's say he's got one of these leg lock heavy guys that prefer guard. All he needs to do is shut down their game long enough and avoid the penalties until overtime, and then they're likely going to have to eat a penalty themselves or get taken down. So just given this very specific rule set ADCC has, it really favours these guys.
All right, let's keep it going. Josh Hinger.
Josh Hinger is an interesting one. So he got bronze 2 ADCCs ago, and then last ADCC, he took out one of the favourites of the division, his teammate Ty, before then losing to his other teammate Hull. The thing that makes Hinger interesting is he's not competed since 2022. So he's only had one match since then against Owen Livesey, which was on Polaris, and that was pretty shortly after ADCC. So he's been pretty much completely inactive since the last ADCC. And why that's even more interesting is just his age as well. So I think he's in his early 40s now.
Really?
Okay. Late 30s, early 40s, around about then. So taking 2 years out from competition and kind of leaving everyone guessing at that sort of age range does kind of leave questions. So obviously beating a guy like Ty at the last Worlds and then getting a bronze medals previously, that would lead you to believe he'd be pretty high up there, but it's just a lot of question marks around Josh given his absence.
Yeah, and I think like IBJJF Nogi world champion multiple times, but I think it was like 2016, 17, 18.
Yeah.
So that's like, even that 2018, we're now going back 6 years. So, and as you get a bit older, you know, that's now maybe going back to like his mid-30s, early 30s.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, Josh, he's obviously been around for a long time. In terms of like the way you look at it differently is like, well, he's got all the experience in the world, right? Especially at ADCC as well, for like, it's a difficult rule set. And certainly people come across it at times, like, you know, maybe like making the wrong decision to try and take points or not try and take points and all this kind of stuff. So having skill in the rule set is something that we weight quite highly on the tier list.
Yeah, and then his specific skill set as well, like we talked about with Pedro, he has got that front headlock attack. He's got one of the best guillotines in the game. And the thing with his age as well, getting up there in age, it only really, when you think about old man strength, which is definitely a thing, your static strength kind of goes through the roof at that age. So if he manages to lock up that position that he was already like one of the best in the world and just add in extra kind of static strength that I'm sure he's gathering, that's going to make it super dangerous. And obviously he utilised that against Ty, slowed him down, made it more of a static, like connected game when they faced each other. So I think in this rule set with a lot of wrestlers, his ability to stand and snatch up that sort of position and be in his world from there, I think, is a massive threat. It's just the question marks. I would be looking at more disruptor, C tier. I think if he'd been more active and he'd had some good successes the last couple of years, I'd be more likely to put him in B tier, dark horse. There's just too many question marks around him right now, and I think he's definitely a disruptor, can definitely win some matches.
If I close my eyes in the fight, can I see Josh Hinger on top of the podium? Like, I just don't see it for this one. But do I see him like winning some matches? Yeah, I just think that's entirely possible. So with the way we rank the categories, if you're not a dark horse to win the whole thing, which would be Jacob Couch right now in this category, then you're in the disruptor tier, which puts you in amongst good names like J-Rod's in there and Taylor Pearman this far. But I just think, Josh, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe he might even go higher. You know what I mean? I just think right now C's fair enough.
For me, quite high up the disruptor tier as well, just given the fact that like he's so good in that specific game that if he gets anyone in that division in this game, whether he submits them or just even uses it to kind of sweep to mount or something like that, I think is a massive threat.
Fair enough. Andre Porfirio, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, another guy who I think at this level is unproven. Who did we bring up that had beat him? I think it was Ryan Aitken had submitted him, and I think he's got some other losses to some guys in this division. Couldn't do well in this division yet to be seen, but I think he's unproven as far as being a low seed. He's likely to get a high seed first round, and then I don't think he's really beaten much guys in this division, so I think unproven so far coming into this one.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, he came third, is it, at the Brazilian trials?
Yeah.
So
similar position to Chris Wojcik then.
Yeah. And like going deep in trials and going deep in multiple trials is commendable, but I think like to win an elite division needs a bit more.
Yeah, we're obviously seeing more of these types of guys just because the divisions happen to be filled out because
don't know if you've heard.
Exodus from CGI, quite a few guys that were supposed to be in this division moving over, so obviously it's getting filled up by more guys than usual that have not won trials, and that's a massive opportunity for them. They could definitely take advantage of that and do really well. We've just not seen enough from those type of guys that Porfirio falls into that category.
Yep. Giancarlo Bodoni.
Giancarlo, interesting one. I think everyone would think S tier, and I think we're probably going to put him there. However, he won this division last time around. One of the best trials performances we've ever seen. 3 out of 4 submissions, and the match that he didn't submit, he was very dominant in, beating the former champion, beating Hulk, beating Rona Flanagan by leg lock as well. So like really, really impressive. It's just outside of ADCC, it's not been as impressive. He's definitely beating some big names, beating some good guys, but then like losing to Pedro, losing other matches here and there. It's just, if this was a different tournament, we would maybe have him at like maybe still S tier, but maybe B or A tier. It's just like in ADCC what he's proven to be capable of in this competition so far. And it seems this is the one he really cares about from watching his YouTube channel, speaking about how he views his losses. He really doesn't seem to mind too much and more just takes it in his stride and tries to learn from it. And I think he very much views ADCC as the big one that he's really trying to win. So I just think what he's shown so far, given the performance he had last time, put him in anything below S tier would be a bit silly.
I think well-roundedness scores super high. Obviously, he's got the accolades. His sort of strength of schedule / form is decent, but not blow away. He has a bit of aura based on the last ADCC performance.
Yeah.
And he always looks good from an eye test perspective. So the other thing for putting him in S is that we're relating it to who is in the division.
Yeah.
So if we're saying, if Bodoni was in over 80 CGI, it might be a different discussion. If he was in under 80 CGI, I know it's not possible with his weight probably, but I just mean if there was a competition like that with that level of grappler throughout, would Bodoni be S tier? Probably not. He might probably go A. But I think for this competition at this time, he is the S tier guy. He is the man to beat in this division.
Yeah, and when you get into weight classes, just the weight some people sit at, some weight classes are absolutely perfect for them, perfect amount of weight to cut where it's not too much, not too little. And it seems like AA is a very good weight class for him. So that definitely plays a factor as well.
Okay, Gabriel Almeida.
Yeah, so Gabriel, Almeida, I think, falls into the disruptor category, kind of similar to Santeri. I think his ability just to win the match, like very solid overall, not necessarily like a massive like dangerous threat in any certain area, but very well rounded. Given that the divisions like opened up a little bit, getting a lot more guys that have been invited that didn't win trials. He obviously did very well in his trials, just didn't get the win either time. But if he gets a top seed, it might be difficult for him. But I think because the division opened up and there's so many of those guys that have been invited recently, could potentially see him go into C tier.
Yeah. I want to talk about someone else alongside Gabriel that and I instinctively might have put D tier, like unproven at this elite level, even although he's been around for a long time. But Charles Negremont, I think, is a C tier contender, a disruptor, because of that same thing, that he's going to be very, very hard to beat. I could see him taking out some people in a sort of grindy match where experience really, really counts. He won South American trials, which I think he won at 35, which is a tremendous achievement to win a really like endurance heavy day at that age. But he has a win over Gabriel, and he's also beaten Izaak in the past.
Yeah, I think as well, like being in that London scene and training with Taylor and Owen O'Flanagan quite a lot, he's probably quite well versed in staying safe and defending the leg attack. So that could really serve him really well if he gets one of those stylistic matchups of guys that are good in the legs. If he can kind of grind that out and win the match in overtime, that's going to be his route to victory.
I think he'd be pretty well rounded, Charles. So yeah, Charles in at C as well, alongside Gabriel, and I believe we've got 3 names left. So let's go to Isaak Michell.
Yeah, so Isaak, for me, I think he's beaten some good guys. He was very dominant against Couch. For me, the biggest thing going for Isaak would actually be the eye test. I just think he's looked really, really good, and I think for this division, he looks like he's got some of the most technical wrestling in this division. He's looking very physical these days, very good gas tank, very strong and explosive, good athlete. His passing is really good. His rumble passing, staying out of entanglements, not really caring if guys stand back up because he can just take them down again. I would be looking towards putting him in A tier, even though he's maybe not got the same sort of resume list-wise as Pedro. I just think eye test, he's looked amazing, and he has beaten some good guys like Roberto, like Couch as well, in pretty dominant fashion.
Yeah, and his losses are only really top guys.
Yeah, Ty.
Well, he had Ty, and then he had that match with Wagner at the last ADCC.
Which could have went either way.
Match of the tournament.
Yeah.
Well, and Wagner is, like, actually in the ADCC context, like, a top guy, like, very, very hard to beat.
Yeah, and that was Isaak as well, kind of first breaking out onto the scene as well, and he did that well against a guy of Wagner's caliber. So,
and I think, yeah, well-roundedness, yeah. Obviously, like, probably, like, where we really see him excel in and amongst this group is his wrestling.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to get caught out anywhere. So
yeah, I think with the leg locks as well, I think he's very well versed. That was more his style a while ago. Obviously, he's transferred more over to like a wrestling and top game style, but having that style previously, training with guys like Craig a lot, training with guys like Jason Rao a lot, if he gets put in there, I think he'll be very comfortable, and his passing style of like leading with the head, keeping the hips back, kind of makes it very hard to get him into those positions in the first place. But when Couch did get him into the legs, he looked very comfortable defending and getting out of there, so I don't think that'll be a big problem for him in this division.
Okay, 2 left. Let's talk about Felipe Costa first, who I believe won South American trials under 99, but has decided to drop down to 88.
Yeah, so that's a question mark in and of itself. If we've not seen him compete too much in this sort of weight class, I think I think D tier kind of would be where I would be looking to slot him in at. I just think a bit unproven, especially he's probably going to be a bit of a lower seed potentially, so that might end up with him having a higher seed, and I think he'll struggle potentially just off what we've seen to beat some of the.
I mean, yeah, I think what plays in his favour is he is very well-rounded and he is very active on the competition scene. So I would expect him to come in like decent enough form, as it were.
Yeah.
But I think just like the fact that he would be likely to get someone like Bodoni, Izaak, Pedro in the first round means it's going to be tough for him to go past that rank. And I think, there is a question over like how proven he is against the likes of Bodoni. So D tier for Costa, and then the last name I've got to discuss is Elder Cruz.
Yeah, so Elder, another one that didn't win trials, but I think he won trials going into the last one, or I'm not sure if he was invited, but he did pretty well in the last Worlds. I think his style for this division is really good. He was submitted by Couch and beaten by Tackett, so those are two big names that he lost to at trials, but very, very physical for this weight class. I think he cuts a lot of weight, but it looks like he cuts it pretty well. Still looks very strong, physical, and then his wrestling is really, really good. Top pressure is really, really good. Seeing guys really struggle under his top game, I think like the longer he can grind people out in that sort of passing style, they really sort of fade in later in the match. So that might favour him well against some of the leg lockers, but at the same time, he has been leg locked by Couch as well. So it's definitely still an area that you can exploit with him, even though it's going to be difficult. And then I think as far as the wrestling, he's right up there in that division and can compete on the feet with any of those guys.
I think he has won East Coast trials.
Yeah, before the last Lords, yeah.
Yeah, and he has some good names on his list for wins. William Packett, he has beaten before. Roosevelt, and I think he's got a win over Roberto Jimenez as well, possibly. So
2-point win over him.
So good names, and sort of like
Chris Wojcik in this division he's beaten.
So he's got capability to beat the type of grappler that he's going to come up against. I could see him get into something like the semi-finals. I think like if all the stars are aligned, like it couldn't be possible for Elder to go all the way. I think it's like a small percentage chance, but it's not like a 0%. And ADCC context, if you can wrestle, gives you a massive, massive advantage, and he certainly can. So I think putting Elder in B tier is
appropriate.
So that concludes the tier for the under 88 kilogram division at the ADCC. We're going to do all the divisions in ADCC and CJI up to the big events in the middle of August. So tune in to the next Jiu Jitsu Oracle where we'll break down one more category.